Hello everybody and welcome back to Operation Logistics, where our building hex and biome hex positions are not correct, and they will not be correct unless we happen to be in the hex that we have selected, and that's not necessarily what we want. So I think what we do need to do is we do need to go back to that offset idea that we were doing earlier. So vector 3 position should definitely be get world hex position, and that'll be hex.worldhex. In fact, it should, from the building hex, it should be get biome hex position, and then we would pass in the hex. And then what we would need to do is, I still think, because realistically, looking at this, we've got our local positions here. Come on, go ahead and compile. There you go. We've got our local positions here, and they are actually correct. So I think what we do need to do is return position plus get building hex by index hex.transform.local position. Basically going back to where we were before. Right? Yeah, I think that is basically what we want. So then down here, vector 3 pose would be, no, not vector 33, vector 3 pose equals get world hex position, and we'll just pass in hex.worldhex, like so. And then we would return position plus get biome hex by index hex world hex hex.biome hex transform dot local position. Local position? It's not a word. Local position. And that should be right. That should give us the correct offset. Theoretically. Ish. Assuming that these all have the same up vector, which they should. The only reason that this might get messed up is because of the scale. Which means that we do need a vector 3 offset, and this would be equal to the current position of either the subhex or sub-subhex manager minus essentially the offset position here from the manager. That would then theoretically take into account the scaling, I would think. Let's just run this as it is and see if this works. I don't think it will, because this is basically what we started with. But let's just see what it does. Just to be sure. I think we're maybe going to have some problems with the scaling, but we'll find out. In fact, I'm 100% certain we're going to have problems with the scaling. So we would need to convert it into world space. Okay, so we skip this tutorial, blah, 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 blah. We come on in here. We need to purchase this storefront, confirm. There we go. And we'll go ahead and create a route there. We are now in edit route mode. And of course, our route is way off position. Way off. Actually, it's not that far off, but it's a ways off position. So what we need to do here is we need to have a vector 3 offset. And this would be equal to, as of right now, we'd be going from the sub-hex manager position, or rather the sub-hex manager. Is that a thing? Do we not have access to the sub-hex manager? How do we not have access to that? public sub hex manager, and we'll call this building hex manager. And we're gonna go ahead and rename the sub hex manager here to the biome hex manager, just so that we're a little bit less confused. Ambiguity between biome hex manager and biome hex manager? Wait, what? We already have one? What is happening here? Oh, we have it down here. Okay. Never mind. Okay. Excellent. Renaming it still was a good thing, though, because we removed the sub-hex manager, and so we renamed it in all files so that everything is referring to it as the building hex manager, which is good. Now, these are set, correct? They should be. It should be in the hex manager, which is, of course, here. Yep, biome hexes and building hexes. Excellent. Or biome hex manager and building hex manager, that is. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so offset would then be our building hex manager dot transform dot position minus this, except instead of the local position, it would be just the position. So we would be taking the offset position here of the building hex from the hex manager, which of course is this. So that should get us exactly the position that we want. So we want to then return position plus offset. We want to do the same thing down here. Vector3 offset equals, instead of the building hex manager here, we are going to be using the biome hex manager dot transform dot position minus get biome hex by index, and we will pass in hex dot world hex and hex dot biome hex dot transform dot position. Now we don't want the local position, we want the regular position here, and then we'll just return position plus offset. There we go. We'll compile that up. Theoretically, that should get us what we need. Maybe. Okay, went ahead and compiled, and let's run this and see if it gave us what we needed. Theoretically, that should work fine, but we'll see. The reason it was so complicated, of course, is because we want to be able to get the positions without necessarily having the subhexes and sub-subhexes, or rather the biome hexes and building hexes, in exactly the location that we want it to. We don't want to have to move those around. So that's the reason why it became a bit more complex. Let's go ahead and purchase ourselves this plant, and then we'll go ahead and start a route there. And it didn't work. Why didn't it work? Where are you at, origination point? Oh, right. You are, I believe, in the right position. You just need to come up a fair amount. Right? So you're at 1.7 Y. And you need to be at 1.75 Y. No, actually, this is our hex, right? Yeah, this is our hex. So it's close, but it's, for some reason, outputting hex number 1 instead of hex number 9. Is it the same offset for each of them? Let's go ahead and buy this hex here. If it's the same offset, we expect it to spawn underneath this road. Then we'll create the route there. And let's take a quick look. Where are you at? No. We want to bring you up. What we want to do. That is not the same offset. Okay. So, hypothetically, this is plant number 9. This is number 68. They spawned in numbers 48 and 1, respectively. Right? So, why did they do that? So our offset is building hex manager.transform.position minus get building hex by index transform.position. It seems like the biome hex offset is correct to me. For now, let's check that. Offset equals vector3.0. So let's check to see if it's giving us the correct... Actually, for right now, let's do both of these. Offset equals vector3.0. Okay. Now, we don't necessarily know what our Z position should be yet, and that is something that I'm actually expecting to have to work on. But, that said... Come on, there we go. Let's go ahead and rerun this and see if it just spawns it at the correct world hex position. That's the goal. So, go ahead and run as soon as you're compiled. There you go. And yeah, let's see if it spawns it at the correct world hex position, and we're just going to start eliminating which of these is an issue. This I'm expecting to not be an issue. In the slightest. Like, realistically, there's absolutely no way that this is an issue unless we're getting the wrong index somehow. But we know that this is working properly, so that shouldn't be a problem. I expect this to work fine and spawn it right at the same coordinates as the world hex index. So we'll skip the tutorial, we'll come on in here. We want to make sure to grab the center points each time, which I am doing, and we will go ahead and buy hex number 0, and we will create a route there. Bam. Okay. I'm expecting this to be spawned dead center in the world hex, so, like, it should be right down there. And indeed it is spawned dead center in the world hex. That is exactly where we wanted it to be. Okay. So now we're going to check the biome hex position and see if that is somehow causing it an issue. I expect this to not be causing it an issue either. We'll go ahead and run this and find out. As soon as it compiles up. There we go. Okay. So I expect this to not be an issue, which means that I expect the issue to be here somehow. I don't know how, but we'll find out if this is somehow the issue. Come on. There we go. We'll go ahead and skip that. Okay, this time I don't want to grab the dead center one. I'm going to grab this guy here. And then we're going to, it doesn't matter which one here we purchase. We're going to do them all for now. And we'll create a route there. And it should be dead center in that biome hex. And it is not. It's over here. Which tells me we might be having an issue with our get by index. So get biome hex by index. Biome hex equals get world hex by index world hex index dot subhex manager dot subhexes biome hex index. Then we return that. I mean, technically we don't even need to have a variable here. So then we would just return that. We're definitely having an issue here. There's no doubt about that. But what is it? Is it to do with our get biome hex by index? Or is it to do with our offset? I'm gonna guess we're having the same issue with our get building hex position. I don't know that for sure. We need to verify our get biome hex by index. So let's go ahead and do a debug.log here, and this is going to be debug.log get biome hex by index hex.worldhex hex.biomehex dot, and we are going to go ahead and output the hex index. Okay. So let's go ahead and run this real quick and see if it's outputting the correct hex index. We'll grab a random hex, and then we will just run that. So we'll go ahead and go here. We'll grab a random biome hex, and then we'll just check to see if it's the correct index. If it's the correct index, then we can pretty safely rule out the get biome hex by index. Otherwise, if it's not the correct index, then we're going to have to go back to the drawing board to some degree. Try to figure out why that would be failing. That shouldn't be failing. Like, this should be just fine. There's absolutely no excuse for that to be failing. Oh my, this is going, rather slowly. Oh, it's because it's outputting it for each one. Okay. We actually need to pause this as soon as it ticks forward here. There we go. Because I want to go ahead and add in a quick debug thing here for this. Bool debug equals false. So then we would do a check here if Unity, what are you doing? We would run a check here. If debug, then we would debug.log, and then we only run that when we are in our building hex here. And we do get building hex position. This is a building hex position. Okay. Well, this has decided to keep going for some unknown reason, and it's going to take forever to stop it. I'm going to go ahead and put a cut in here, and next episode, we'll continue troubleshooting this. See you all then.